Assalamu alaikum. In this video, Deena and I will be explaining about language planning and official languages. First, let's take a look into national and official languages. What is a national language and what makes it different from an official language? Well, a national language is a language of a political, cultural, and social unit, where an official language is a language used for government business. A national language is used to identify a nation and unite its people, whereas an official language is primarily unitarian rather than symbolic. A national language is developed and used as a symbol of international unity. Since a language can be both a national language and official language, many countries make no distinction between these two. In fact, governments also don't recognize these distinctions as long as it suits their political ends. Countries with monolingual nations use the same language for both purposes of a national language and an official language. On the other hand, multilingual communities use all kinds of different permutations to accomplish both political and social goals, as well as practical and unitarian needs. The government in multilingual countries often declares a particular language to be a national language for political reasons. Declaration may be a step in the process of asserting nationhood of a newly independent or established nation. For example, it's like how Malay became the official language for Malaysia. A national language cannot serve all internal and external functions of government business. However, it has been necessary to identify one or more official languages. The identification of an official language may be necessary when the choice of a national language becomes problematic. That's national and official languages sorted out. Now, let's look into official status and minority languages. When we're talking about official status, the best example of this is the English language. English is the official language in many countries such as in Jamaica and Pakistan. English also shares an official status with indigenous languages. Surprisingly, this language is not legally the official language in the United Kingdom, United States of America, and New Zealand. This is because these countries don't see it necessary to legislate that the language of the majority is the official language. Now, jumping into minority languages, many minorities would like to gain official status for their languages, but the cost in terms of providing services, information, and legal presentation in official languages are considerable and government counts them carefully, and they are all expensive business. What price a national language? Well, many countries have regarded the development of a single national language as a way of symbolizing the unity of a nation. The slogan "One Unity, One Language" was very popular and very effective. In the early centuries, national language of a political entity emerged naturally, unselfconsciously, and relatively over a period of time. Some obvious examples are like English in England and Japanese in Japan. There were about 1,500 languages that shared this kind of status. The numbers increased especially in the 19th century as the linguistic nationalism in Europe grew, and the numbers doubled in size in the 20th century with the emergence of the colonized countries from colonial rules to independent nation-states. Over the last 100 years, nationhood and independence have been very important political issues throughout the whole world. The struggles to establish a distinct national identity and to secure independence from the colonial rules highlighted the importance of the development of national language. A national language gives off the advantage of being a useful lingua franca and official language, and acts as a symbolic unifying function for nations. Fantastic! We've covered the topic of national language. Now, let's proceed with language planning by Deena.
Next, I will be explaining about language planning. Language planning refers to the measures taken by official agencies to influence the use of one or more languages in a particular speech community. An American linguist named Joshua Fishman has defined language planning as the authoritative allocation of resources to the attainment of language status and corpus goals, whether in connection with new functions that aspire to or in connection with old functions that need to be discharged more adequately. To put it in simpler terms, language planning refers to the process of when a government or any official agencies want to give status or importance to a certain language, such as electing it as an official language or national language. Once a language is chosen, it undergoes language planning.
However, choosing a language variety is not easy. It depends on multiple factors such as the form of the variety, the functions it serves, and the attitudes people hold towards the language variety. And that is why language planning has these four steps, which are selection, codification, elaboration, and acceptance. Firstly, we have selection. This step refers to choosing a variety to be developed. The selection of a language is usually in relation with politics, power, and status. Second, there is codification, also known as corpus planning. Codification is the step where the language undergoes standardization in terms of its pronunciation, grammar, and vocabulary. Third is elaboration, in which the language expands to accommodate to certain domains such as government use, literature, and academic writing. Last but not least is acceptance. This step aims to encourage people to accept the language and develop pride and loyalty towards it. Despite how it seems like a fixed process, it is in fact not. These steps can take form in many ways due to different factors in each country or domain. The steps are interchangeable and whichever can come before another depending on the situation during the language planning process. To understand this better, let's take a look at an example. The rise of Standard English. The language planning process for the standardization of English starts with selection. By the end of the 13th century, the court had moved from Winchester to London, thus the accent of the East Midlands Triangle, which consists of London, Oxford, and Cambridge, gradually became preferred by the educated. As London was a wealthy agricultural area and centre of woodlands trade, it is no surprise that the city became populated and the use of its accent was then chosen as the language variety for the standard English. Then came acceptance. The new standard was popularized by the royal court, new translations of the Bible, the printing press, and especially the London Chancery. Besides that, another contributing factor is the adoption of the new standard by students who came to study at Oxford and Cambridge from all over England. This gives the standard an important degree of social and geographical mobility. After that is elaboration. The standard was expanded to more domains and began replacing Latin and French in government, church, scholarship, printing, and administrations. Lastly, it goes through codification. The rise of the standard brings forth the questions of what is the correct way of speaking the language. This contributes to the advent of dictionaries, grammar, and orthography, the study of correct pronunciation. As we can see, the process for standard English goes through the steps from selection, acceptance, elaboration, and lastly, codification, which shows that the process of language planning is fairly flexible with the implementation of its steps. Within the language planning process, linguists also play an important role, especially in the codification of orthography, development of the language, development of the vocabulary, securing acceptance, and planning the language acquisition. And that is all from me for language planning. We hope you enjoyed the video and learned lots about national language and language planning. Thank you.